What a great experience for me to be here with all of you wonderful people spending your money to come to listen to me talk. And we need to get your minds ready to start to learn, because once a mind is in motion, it tends to stay in motion. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to all stand and find yourself a partner. And when you do, find out who has the longest last name. Go. And if you don't find a partner, you're going to get stuck with me. Okay. The person with the longest last name is going to be person number 1. And I'm going to make the assumption that you all know how to play rock, paper, and scissors. You're used to doing it this way. We're going to do it a little differently. Person number 1, you're going to take your hand and you're going to put it behind your back. And you're going to show person number 2, either rock, paper, or scissors. Person number 2, when you see it, you're going to beat them. And you're going to do that 3 times. Everybody understand? So I'm going to go show, rock. Okay? Go 3 times. Okay, time. Have a seat. I do that to start because I want to get your minds ready to go. When you have to make a quick decision, a simple decision in this case, it forces your mind to make that decision, and it gets it activated and it's ready to go. Now, there's a lot of physical education teachers in here, so make sure that you do it with your bodies instead of just with your hands. So I can't do the jump, but if I were to jump 3 times, 1, 2, 3, if I wanted to be a rock, I would squat. If I wanted to be paper, and if I wanted to be scissors, so you can play rock, paper, and scissors the whole body and get the whole body working at the same time. That's what we like to do as physical education teachers. All right, so now I have to introduce you to the United States. This particular study came out in, I always forget, 2001. And in 2001, in the state of California, they have to give physical fitness tests. Now, in the United States, our physical fitness test is called the fitnessgram. There are 6 portions of it. There is cardiovascular or aerobic, and we do that with a pacer. You have that timed run over 20 meters back and forth. We do the same thing. It's paced push-ups, so it's down, up until you can't do anymore. Paced sit-ups or curl-ups, up, down, up, down. Then there is the flexibility, and that's with the hamstring stretch. In California, they do a shoulder girdle stretch as well, and then they use BMI as it. So they give 6 tests in the state of California. So the chart you're looking at, along the bottom line, you'll see numbers 1 through 6. Somebody got the bright idea in 2001. It happened to be a politician. Imagine that, a great idea from a politician. They got the bright idea, let's put our statewide test scores in with our fitness scores and let's see what happens. Well, what you're seeing is, again, mathematics and reading. If a student is in the healthy category in only one of the tests, they're on the left-hand side of the chart, through the 6 tests. Well, as students become fit in more test areas, academically their scores go up. So top left-hand corner is the 5th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, 9th grade being the last year in California that they have physical education. They did this study again in 2004. They wanted to see if it would remain the same. The difference between 2001 and 2004, they had a significant number of students in the healthy category in none of the tests. So now we had another column over on the left-hand side, 0. And this is English language arts. And again, you see, as they become fit in more tests academically, their scores go up. What I like about this is it's the state of California. So it doesn't take into account gender. It doesn't take into account socioeconomic background. It's just the more fit you are, academically your scores go up. The same thing in mathematics. Okay, grades 5, 7, and 9. I got this particular study out of University of West Virginia. They looked at 725 fifth grade students. They had their fitness scores in fifth grade and their academic scores. They did the same thing in seventh grade 2 years later. Here's what they found. Academic performance dipped when their fitness went down in the 2-year time span. It improved when their fitness improved, and those that had the best scores overall were fit at the start of the study and then at the end of the study. So now there's a pattern here. This particular study came out of Texas. Dr. Ken Cooper, and Dr. Ken Cooper is the gentleman who coined the term aerobics back in the 1960s. Before Dr. Ken Cooper said aerobics, it was running, biking, swimming. Well, went too far. So, being the father of aerobics, he wanted to see if all of the tests out of his fitnessgram, if he could pinpoint down to just cardiovascular fitness. He wanted to see, does this test make it the big difference? And the answer is yes. On their statewide test, now this is 2.4 million students taking this study. On the left-hand side, if the students in the gray boxes are in the exemplary category on their statewide testing, 80% of them met or exceeded the standards for cardiovascular conditioning. When you move over to recognize, you see there's a drop of about 10% on those that meeting the standard. When you move from recognize to acceptable, you see a drop of about 15%. And you come all the way to unacceptable. So from exemplary to unacceptable is a drop of about 40% of the students who can meet the standards for aerobic capacity. So now there's a pattern here showing all the time. Let's talk about Sweden. Now this study came to me years ago, and I know this is not the case, but if you were a Swedish male born between 1950 and 1976, you had to go into the military. Okay? So they had fitness scores on them as they went into the military. They had IQ scores on them. 1.2 million men in this study, all Swedes. 270,000 were siblings. 3,100 were fraternal twins. 1,432 were identical twins. And the study, and what they found out is those with better cardiovascular conditioning had better IQ scores, even when they compared twins. So now we've taken out gender, we've taken out environment, we've taken out genetics, we've taken background, we've taken all of those out. Cardiovascular conditioning makes a significant difference. So those of you teaching physical education know that you are you are the most important subject. Math is second. In the school setting because of what you bring to the table if you're doing things the correct way. Now, everybody always challenges me. Oh, you're a phys ed teacher, and you just want to talk about phys ed, and you just want to talk about fitness. Is there anything in science that proves this? And the answer is, of course, yes. Gentleman in the University of Illinois does a study, and he does MRI scans on students. And when he does MRI scans, each one of these skulls is about 20 students, okay? On the left-hand side, you're seeing the higher fit students. On the right-hand side, you're seeing the lower fit students. When they sit down to take a hard test, now I'm not talking about a pencil and paper hard test. I'm talking about what we call a flanker test. This is a yellow triangle. The next thing you see, is it a yellow triangle or is it a blue square? And you're reacting to that. It's what we call a flanker test. So what you see is where the brain is red and white, it is lit up. It is resolving the issues of the test. The lower fit students, the brain is more cool. There's not as much activity going on. More importantly, when you move down to a harder test, look at the brains of the higher fit students. They're all lit up. They're using all of their brain power. the lower fit students still can't recruit enough brain power to resolve the issues of the test. So yes, scientific evidence that fitness matters. Now this gentleman is probably why I'm here. His name is Dr. John Rady. He wrote the book Spark. Now Dr. John Rady came to visit our school in 2003, and he came to our school because he used this quote: "Exercise is like fertilizer to the brain. It's so good it's like Miracle-Gro." He used that on public radio. The gentleman in our school district, his name was Phil Lawler, he heard Dr. Rady say that quote on public radio, and he said, I'm going to use that quote too. And he did. And when he did in a movie, there was a movie out called Super Size Me. And in Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock ate McDonald's foods every meal for 30 days. Well, toward day 25, he went in for a physical because he was feeling terrible. And his doctor says, "You have to quit this. You're killing yourself." And so when he was creating this movie, he did some research and he said, "I'm going to look at the best physical education program I could find." And he happened to come upon the one in Naperville because Phil was always good at making sure that we were in the limelight. So he came to visit us, and Phil used this quote in the movie in the outtake, Super Size Me. So Dr. Rady's daughter sees the movie Super Size Me and says, "Dad, this PE teacher in Naperville is using one of your quotes." Well, being a researcher, Dr. Rady looked into our school district. In 1999, our school district participated in an international math and science test called the TIMSS test, T-I-M-M-S. And our superintendent at the time said, "Hold us accountable as a separate entity. Grade us, and hold us to the rest of the world and see where we come in." Well, it was our 7th graders who took the test. We were number 1 in the world in science, number 6 in the world in mathematics. And Dr. Rady says, "Wait a minute. You have daily physical education?" I said, "Yes, we do." Then he looked at our graduation rates. We graduate about 99.6% of our students every year. About 95% of our students go on to some form of university, either a 1-year or 2-year junior college for us. And he says, "Wait a minute. You have daily physical education all 4 years in high school?" We said, "Yes, we do." He says, "I got to come and see your program. I've got to see what's going on." He says, "Okay." You see, as a clinical psychologist, Dr. Rady was famous for doing research. The first book he ever wrote was Driven to Distraction. It's all about ADD and ADHD. And for years, he was treating all kinds of conditions: ADD, OCD, depression, anxiety, even addictions. He was treating them with medicines, pharmaceuticals. "Here, try this, try this, try this." He had pharmaceutical companies lined up for miles. "Here, try this, we'll give you money. Here's all kinds of grant money." Well, suddenly he discovered that he could treat all of those conditions better with exercise than pharmaceuticals. So he said, "That's why I got to come and see your program." So he comes to see our program. Well, the first thing he does when we're sitting down and we're talking, and said, "I have to talk to you about BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor." Now, being a physical education teacher, it took me 3 weeks to say that without tripping over my tongue. And he says, "Let me tell you about this. This is how we found out about this particular protein in the brain. We started with lab rats. And we had lab rats that would sit in a cage, and we would take them out of the cage, and we would put them in a maze. The maze was filled with opaque water, so the rats could not see the bottom. Now, rats don't like water. Get me out of here, I don't want to be here. But along the way, the researchers put platforms. And if a rat happened to find a platform, they would get up, they would rest, but driven by hunger to get to the end of the maze where the food was, they dove back in the water. Second set of lab rats, they put an exercise wheel in their cage, and they ran for an average of 4 hours a day. After putting them in the maze the first time, the second time, and their time afterwards, those rats remembered where those platforms were, swam to them, finished the maze. Third set of lab rats ran for an average of 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day. Same thing, remembered where those platforms were, swam to them. Now, at the end of the study, they autopsied the rats. Fortunately, our students and us are not rats. And so they autopsied the rats, and here's what they found. Significantly more brain cells in the 4-hour exercise group than in the problem-solving group. You see, problem-solving and new learning doesn't build brain cells. Exercise does. Even more brain cells in the 8-hour exercise group than in the 4-hour exercise group. That's what led neuroscientists to say BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, creates new brain cells in your brain every time you do aerobic exercise, regardless of your age. So me being the oldest person in the room at age 69, every time I do my aerobic exercise, I am still building brain cells. And all the time, there are brain cells that we are killing off and paring away that aren't being used. So we have to replenish them, and the only way to do it is with exercise. So this is startling for me. I said, why don't you tell administrators that? He said, well, we thought they knew it. I said, no, they don't know that. So it wasn't until the mid-1990s that we even knew this. Up until the mid-1990s, we thought you were born with X number of brain cells, and then you kill them off by doing bad things. Not like me, of course. But now the truth is, again, neurogenesis. Every time we do aerobic exercise, we can manufacture new brain cells. So, you've been sitting for so long. All right, what you're going to do is you're going to get up and you're going to find a new partner, okay? And this time, the person with the longest hair is going to be person number 1. Ready? Get up and find a partner. Okay, here we go. If you are person number 1, I want you to cross your right leg over your left leg. Take your hands, put your thumbs up, spread your fingers. Cross your hands, thumbs down, interlock your fingers. Now roll them up so that you can look at them. Person number 2, do not touch a finger. Don't touch. But point to a finger, point to one on this side, one on this side, one on this side. And then I want you, person number 1, to wiggle that finger and that finger only. Ready? Go. Don't touch. Don't touch. Okay, time. So now person number 2, you had a good laugh, right? Your turn. Cross your right leg over your left leg. Hands up, thumbs up, fingers spread. Cross them. Turn your thumbs down, interlock your fingers, roll them up so that you can see them. Remember, person number 1, do not touch. Okay. Time. Oh, no, stand up. You're not done yet. Don't start applauding yet because you don't know what's next. Here's the tough test. In the United States, so that we know that you're all hooked up, because we've done all this, you know, your right brain controls the left side of your body. So here's a true test. Start with your feet pointing straight at me. Put your hands out like this, clap 3 times. Oh, in unison. The Swedish people, Martin, are really good. All right, so we clap 3 times. Now, cross them. Oh, I'm sorry. My fault. Cross them, thumbs down, interlock your fingers. Now, make sure that your right thumb is on the bottom. Everybody make sure your right thumb is on the bottom. Got it? Okay, come on up. Take your pointer fingers, point them at me. Pointer fingers, point them at me. Tap them 3 times. 1, 2, 3. If you're all hooked up, you should be able to do this. Well, Here's the good news. You'll be able to vote in the next U.S. presidential election. Go ahead. All right, have a seat. For 100 chronos at the end of the conference, I'll be able to give you the secret. Secret is this, so that you can do this to your students. When I crossed and I did this, you can't come out of this. So when I said, concentrate and make sure your right thumb is on the bottom, I dropped my hands and I turned my palm. Looks like I'm still twisted, but I'm not. So now you have a trick. All right. I do this hookup. First of all, you need to understand this. If you put your students in this position, cross their right leg, get in this hookup, take their tongue, put it on the roof of their mouth, close their eyes, sometimes it will help them calm down because you're rewiring the brain. Does it work all the time? No. Our brain isn't the same all the time, every time. But sometimes it will help that student who is anxious. It will help them calm down. I do this now because, again, I'm wanting to get your heads rewired because now I'm going to give you brain chemistry. Oh, Lord, help us. All right. So what we have is we have a brain cell. And in the middle of the brain cell, we have a nucleus. And off of the nucleus, we have dendrites and axons. And information must flow from one brain cell to the next brain cell through dendrites and axons. I thought I had one. Let's see. Nope, I guess not. Okay. Anyway, information must flow from one brain cell to the next. What controls that flow of information from one brain cell to the next? Because dendrites and axons don't touch. There's a gap in between them, and the gap is what we call the brain synapses. So that information must flow from brain cell to brain cell through the brain synapses. Those neurochemicals that are in your brain, and there are several, but I'm going to focus on 3, is what controls that flow of information from one brain cell to the next. That's crucial. It has to do that. For me, as a physical education teacher, this next slide explained it to me better than any other. And I finally had to have John Rady. I said, John, sit down. Explain this so I can explain it to my peers so that we can understand it, so I can explain it better to my students as well. So this next slide, I think, explains it really good. 3 major neurotransmitters in the brain are dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. Well, dopamine is that reward, pleasure, motivation, and drive. That's that runner's high you get after running. Well, I'm 69 years old and I'm still waiting for my first runner's high. Anybody who's told you that exercise is fun has lied to you. But when you're done exercising, you feel good. That's the dopamine setting in. Okay? Serotonin helps us with obsessions and compulsions and memory. Those are things we need to be concerned with ourselves and with our students as well. And then norepinephrine helps with alertness, concentration, and energy. So those particular neurotransmitters in our brain are very, very important, especially in the educational setting. Okay? Now, what's nice about these chemicals is they don't sit in our body and our brains in isolation. They mix and match, much like gin and tonic. Well, when you mix dopamine and serotonin together, you're dealing with appetite, sex, and aggression. Well, the best way I can always explain this to an audience is, generally after a really hard workout, you're not hungry. Your body says, no, I'm not hungry right now. An hour or 2 later, the calorie burn sets in and then you become hungry. But initially it's not. So that's the combination of dopamine and serotonin working in your brain. The combination of norepinephrine and serotonin helps us with anxiety, impulse, and irritability. Well, guess what that is in the pharmaceutical world? In the United States, it's Zoloft, Prozac, all of those things. And here's the best part about it. No side effects. In the United States, there's so many drug commercials on television all the time. and say, all right, if you're depressed, then let's take this. But then it could lead to thoughts of suicide, diarrhea, vomiting. I mean, the side effects are worse than, I'm depressed. Now they're naturally in our body, and they act naturally. Okay, teachers, here we go. The combination of dopamine and norepinephrine helps us with attention. Guess what that is in the pharmaceutical world? Ritalin, Adderall. Our students, for the most part, don't need it. They're undermoved. They don't move enough. They're spending all days like this. This does not do anything to the brain except stifle it. Now, are there occasions when students have ADD or ADHD? Absolutely. And then the drug comes in. But again, the side effects, low body weight, everything. And, it gets worse. Now, what's even better yet is when all three of those chemicals come together in our brain, it helps with mood and cognitive function. Wow. How powerful is that when we exercise? So here's what we know then about exercise. If I could create exercise and put it in a pill, I'd be the most powerful man in the world. Because it does. It improves impulse control, behavior, attention, decreases restlessness, improves arousal, lessens fatigue, improves motivation. Not only that, it helps with mood and anxiety regulation, combats depression, improves self-esteem, reverses learned helplessness. Those are those students who we are failing because they say, oh, I can't do it, because they don't feel good about themselves. And then it combats the toxic effects of stress hormones. And stress hormones come to our students in the form of lack of sleep and poor nutrition. So that's what a bout of exercise will do for you. Why are you sitting here? Get up and get moving. So here's what we know. Exercise is going to build those new brain cells. Once we get those new brain cells built through exercise, through our physical education classes, we send them off to math class. And then when you have new learning, those new brain cells create more dendrites and axons, not new brain cells, more neural connections in the brain, so it enhances the brain. But we first have to create those brain cells, and again, we do it through aerobic exercise. Here's what we now know from neuroscientists. Students will learn 10% more when they're standing as opposed to sitting. Standing as opposed to sitting. Students will increase their learning if they are standing and moving by another 3%. 85%, this is Dr. Carla Hannaford, 85% of our children are predominantly kinesthetic learners. Most students would prefer to learn by doing rather than sitting to be told. And this from Dr. Engelman out of Baylor. We remember 20% of what we read, 30% of what we hear, 40% of what we see, 50% of what we say, 60% of what we do. However, 90% of what we see, hear, say, and do. That's what we need to get in our classrooms. That's where people like Dave at our school are so wonderful, because they get the kids engaged and involved. In the United States, we have these kind of statistics coming at us. In 1985, there were 500,000 students diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. 2008, it's 5 to 7 million. You see, it's easy for a doctor in the United States. Mom comes in and says, my son's teacher says he can't sit still in school. Does it look like I was the kind of kid that could sit still in school anyway? No. But that's what the teacher says, he can't sit still in school, because teachers want their kids to be like this. And so, all right, obviously here, I can give you medication because you don't want your child to get in trouble in school, so they put them on Ritalin and Adderall. 2011, it's 1 out of every 10 students. 1 out of every 10 in the United States. That means in a class of, 25, 30, 3 to 4 of those students are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. 75% of boys have ADD ADD and ADHD, 65% of girls. 65% of all students with ADHD have discipline problems. You want to know why more boys have it than girls? It's in our DNA. In the old days, in the tribe, we had to be the vigilant ones. We stood guard. We hunted. We did all of that. We fought the battles. It's in our DNA not to sit still. If you've ever seen a flock of geese or ducks, everybody's down eating except for one male, and he's doing this. All of a sudden, he quacks, and they all look up. It still happens in nature, but fortunately, we don't have to fight that much anymore. But it's in our DNA not to sit still. We, as males, we're not the basket weavers. That's just the way it is. But, we want those poor boys to sit still. Here's what we know. Your attention span is equal to your age in minutes. So a 5-year-old has about a 5 to 7 minute attention span. Those of you teaching that age level, you know what I'm talking about. 5 to 7 minutes, you've lost them. You got to be on to something else. You got to be doing something different. Typical 13-year-old has about a 15 to 18 minute attention span. A typical adult, 20 to 25 minutes. I told this story last night. Google will never have a meeting longer than 20 minutes. If they can't resolve the issue in 20 minutes, they stop at that point, call another meeting to resolve it. Their meeting will never be done sitting down. Their meetings are always standing up. And if the group is small enough, their meeting will be done walking. We need to learn from the brightest and the best. So saying that, I have you for 90 minutes to sit down and listen to me. All right, so why am I here? Because Martin came to visit our school a number of years ago after reading the book Spark. And we created a program that we started out in the book. It was 0-hour PE, and we changed it as we progressed, and we turned it into Learning Readiness PE. And what we did is, I had a principal who came to me and says, we have this reading class, an intervention class for those readers who are struggling in reading. And it's an extra class during the day. And since our students have daily physical education anyway, would you consider running those students in a PE class 0-hour or before school? I had just talked to Dr. Rady. I said, absolutely, no question about it. I've got this brain research now. Yes, let's do it. I said, but only one small problem. If I'm going to have 0-hour PE, then I want reading to be first hour of the day, right after they come out of physical education. He said, okay, we can schedule it. I told the people involved in the program, look, we need to collect data. That's the only thing administrators and people understand. Collect data, we need to know how we're doing, is it working? And so we use a nationwide reading test we call it the Nelson-Denny. And there are two portions of it. There's portion A, portion B. So if I give you portion A at the beginning of a semester, if I want to see how far you've progressed, I give you portion B at the second semester, and that tells me relatively how much you've improved. So when we did this, here's what happened. In 2005, the first year we had the program, there were only 16 students involved in the program. 7 of them got off the bus. They're in blue. Okay? 9 participated in the phys ed class. So this is growth in years reading retention. So the students in the class who got off the bus and went to class improved 9/10 of a year improvement in just one semester or a half a year. Now that's pretty significant because reading scores are really hard to improve. However, the kids who had the phys ed class improved 1.4 or a half a year more. Same thing, same class, everything. So now my administration says, wow, this is really something. Let's put every student who is in this reading class, we're going to put them in first hour physical education. We're not going to run a 0-hour PE anymore. So that's when I said, okay, learning readiness PE. We're going to use PE to get the brain ready to learn. Now, there were 2 sections of the reading now this second year, okay? So I said, look, let's take this study and let's stretch it. If they're all going to go to first hour physical education, let's put half of them in second hour reading. Let's put half of them in 8th-hour reading at the end of the day. So there's a disconnection from when they exercise to when they have the reading class. He says, okay, we can do it. So when we did the data, the students who were in the afternoon improved 7/10 of a grade level improvement, and the other students improved 1.34, about the same number. So researchers come to me and said, oh, look, I've got this study. Oh, no. It's the end of the day. Those are your poor students. They started to shut down. I said, oh, really? Oh, okay. 2007, I said, good. I'll create 2 learning readiness PEs, and I'll put them right before they have reading. Reading in the afternoon, reading in the morning, PE in the morning, PE in the afternoon. Look at the data, 1.8, 1.7. Didn't matter if it was morning or afternoon. It only mattered that PE preceded it. Now, at this point in time, the English teachers really were buying in and were really using movement in the process as well. 2009, my administration had what I call the administrative brain fart. Oh, we have to give the kids an option. Option? We have an intervention that works. Why would? Okay, you're the boss. We'll give them the option. But at this point in time, I'm up to 4 sections of LRPE, 4 sections of reading. Again, when we did the data, 2009, same kinds of results. 2011, I said, okay, we've done this study over the course of 1 semester. Now, 2011, let's take it and let's compare them from where they come to us at the beginning of the year to where they're at the end of the year. And now you see the data. The students who just took the class improved almost 2 years in a full year of academic learning, but those who had the PE grew almost 3 years in the same amount of time. So that's pretty significant. Now, we have a wonderful math department chair at our school, and he looked at the data and says, I want to get involved in this program. So I said, okay, do you have a program similar for those students who are struggling in math? He says, yes, we do. We have Introduction to Algebra. Those are for students who are in the 9th grade, who are not ready to take algebra. So we put them in Introduction to Algebra. I said, okay, good. He says, you got a 1st-hour LRPE. I said, yes, I do. He says, this is what I'll do. I'll create a 2nd-hour Introduction to Algebra. 24 students. 12 will be regular ed students that are struggling. 12 are what we call in the United States special ed. These are students with, it could be ADD, ADHD, could be somewhere on the autism spectrum. Whatever the case may be, they have a plan written for them to adapt. Some of them may be a little dyslexic, those kinds of things. So the class is created with 24, 12, and 12. He divided them up in half. He said half of the special ed and half of the regular ed will be in LRPE, half will have their PE afterwards. So we started collecting data, again, using a nationwide test called the Algebra Ready Test. This is what the data showed. 2006. Now remember, this is a small sampling. This is only 24 total kids, 12 and 12. So the students who had PE afterwards improved 3.9%, 20.4% for those who were involved in PE. Wow. That's what everybody said. 2007, when we had 2 classes of LRPE going on, we incorporated 4 sections of algebra. Now when you include, when your numbers get bigger, then you can expect some numbers to be different. 2008, my math department chair said, that's it. Every student who is in Introduction to Algebra will now have LRPE for their PE class. And look at the data in 2008. 2009, the year of the brain fart. What we found now is, again, those kids that opted out. Now, why is there such a significant number between 2009 and the 2007 and 6 numbers is because the algebra teachers brought in another intervention, and they brought in an intervention called ALEX, where 2 days a week the students would go into the computer lab and work on algebra concepts, and that helped. Sometimes when you create an intervention and you stack another intervention on top of it, they cancel out each other. We found out that that wasn't the case. 2010, there were only 2 students who opted out, so an insignificant number to keep track of. 2011, the last year we kept any data, you're going to see the numbers again. So it works. And it works not only in my district, but it works all over. So what you want to know now as phys ed teachers is, what does LRPE look like? It's based on cardiovascular fitness. At least 3 days a week, we're going to do cardiovascular exercise. We use heart rate monitors. It is now 2016. If you're a physical education teacher and you haven't discovered heart rate monitors, shame on you. You need to. Okay? We have our students work between 155 and 200 beats per minute. Now, they can't maintain that the whole time. Our classes are 50 minutes long. During that time, we want them to be 20 to 25 minutes in that range. And our heart rate monitors tell us that. Now, besides that, cross-lateral movements matter because the right side of the brain controls the left side. Now, neuroscientists tell me I'm crazy. That's okay. I've had other people tell me I'm crazy too. But I believe it helps because I've seen it in our classes. Core strength is critical. You see, the brain is attached to the brainstem, is attached to the spine. It's all attached to the core. So core strength is important. We work on that. Team building. These are students who have been what we call disenfranchised. These are students who said, you know, I'm not good in math, or I'm behind in reading, and so they feel bad about themselves. So we have to do some team building because we're all in this together, guys. You got to work hard in physical education. You have to work hard in math. You have to work hard in reading. And if you do, you're going to benefit from it. So that's important. Balance and gymnastics. In the United States, we have done a terrible job with gymnastics. We've taken it out of schools because lawyers have come in and said, oh, it's too dangerous. The cerebellum, a small part back here in the brain, controls coordination and balance in the body. It also controls balance and coordination in the brain. So it's critical that we work on gymnastics and balance and those kinds of things. Then, what we call our traditional team sports. And I'll talk about how we do traditional team sports a little later. But you can't make your LRPE class what I call a boot camp. Nobody can exercise hard 5 days a week all year long. You couldn't do it. And you certainly, your students couldn't do it. And those that are struggling certainly can't, they'll be hard to do it. So that's what our program looks like a little bit. So can this be replicated? And the answer is yes. You see, I've had these foreign countries either come to visit us or representatives come from these countries visit us, or in the case of Israel, they just contacted me this year, in emails back and forth. I'm trying to explain the program. We've done it in 22 different states in school districts, and it works every time. There's a particular district in our area. The city of Chicago is bounded on the east side by Lake Michigan. And then it goes out toward what we call the suburbs. Well, at the dividing line between the city of Chicago and the suburbs, the west side, that's an area you don't want to go to visit. Tough, tough neighborhood. Right on the edge of that is Oak Park River Forest High School. Now, at the far western end of this particular school district is all very rich money. A lot of our Al Capone type people were, out in the River Forest. So a very diverse population there. All of the students were in a third-hour English class, but the students in the LRPE PE class did much more cardiovascular work. They did a lot more cross-lateral movements. Okay, when they did their data, it looked something like this. So it works. And it works because when you put those chemicals together, you're affecting mood and cognitive function. Now, Dr. Cooper, when he did his work in Texas, he said, what else can we find? And here's what he found out. Better attendance for those who were in a cardiovascular conditioning stage. Better attendance. Not only that, fewer disciplinary problems for those who were in the healthy stage for cardiovascular conditioning. So this is significant because it affects mood and cognitive function. Worked with this particular school in Charleston, South Carolina. He came to visit our program, and we worked together, and I just got an opportunity last summer to visit his program. He does remarkable stuff. And what he did is he went to a middle school. And for us, middle school is 6, 7, and 8. So he went in this middle school, and he looked at the 22 worst males in his 7th grade. 22 worst males. They had lowest academic performance, behavioral problems, unbelievable. And so what you see is you're looking at the trending of academic referrals. You know, when students do something bad, we write up a referral. You see them trending up as we get through to December. Okay, 7th grade boys. When they started at the semester into this intense PE class, now you start to see the referrals start to decline per student. Not only that, in 4 months, the 7th graders improved their reading scores by a year and a half. And their math, a full year's growth in their math scores. And that was, again, just in 1 semester with that program. I was involved in a program called PE for Life for a number of years. And we went into an inner city Kansas City school. Again, right in a tough neighborhood, right in the hood. And we said, look, you have 1 day, this is at the elementary level, you have 1 day of physical education. We'll write a grant so that you can afford to have physical education every day. We'll hire more phys ed teachers with this grant, we'll get you more equipment. And the principal said, well, if it's not going to cost me any more money, fine, let's do it. So we did it. And our goal at the time was to improve fitness scores. Well, the top line of pace, the pace curl-ups, we improved 196%, sit-ups. Push-ups improved 71%. Modified sit and reach improved 103%. And pacer, cardiovascular conditioning, improved 145%. So what we wanted to accomplish, we did. We improved fitness scores. Here's what that school found out because they did this data. That disciplinary incidents involving violence went down 51%, and out-of-school suspension days went down 60% because of mood and cognitive function. Mood. Went to another school in Leavenworth, Kansas. 1 day a week PE, elementary school. 1 day a week PE, went to 5 days a week PE. They changed their menu. They wanted more vitamins and a healthier diet in their lunch menu, okay, from 1 to 5. There were 10 schools in this particular school district, elementary schools. So the year before, they were, they were 10th in reading, 9th in math. They saw a 1,300% increase in those passing the fitness gram. They went from 9th in reading to 2nd in reading, and they went from 10th in math to 1st in math in their district. But their offense discipline referrals went down from 438 down to 18. That's significant. That's significant. Okay, so now we've got all this research. What else should we do in Naperville? Why would people still come to visit us? I don't know. Because they like to visit Dave. We changed. We were lucky enough to redo our building. Okay? So we redesigned our classrooms. So what you're looking at classrooms, and you're looking at desks that are triangular. Now, why would somebody want triangular desks? Well, when you put them next to each other, the students are in closer proximity to each other to help each other. If you take 4 of them and you put them together in what would be a square, there's 4 students in closer proximity to each other. Because they're triangular shape, if you're right-handed or left-handed, when you get in the middle, it doesn't matter. Your elbows rest on top rather than a rectangular shape. The math teachers, being math teachers, found out that there's more square inches in this space. Not only that, the tops of these are highly polished. So now you can write on them with erasable markers. If you look at the classroom, 2 walls are painted whiteboard. Painted whiteboard. So from the floor to as high as you can reach where the brown, and the brown over the top is tackboard that you could put signs in. So from the floor to as high as the students can reach, They can get up to the board and they can write. And I've gone into classrooms and I've seen students laying on the ground and they're working on the board. That's okay. Wherever we could, we tried to get some standing desks. Dave has 4 in his particular class. And the chairs are on hydraulics. So, because you see, everybody's not the same size. But most schools are all just in, hard chairs and uncomfortable. And they're on wheels, so they roll around. We want movement in our classrooms. And kids can raise and lower them, and they're ergonomically designed so they can lean back and do all of this. Because if you go to a regular classroom and they have a chair that's separated from the desk, you get the boys all leaning back on 2 legs and all kinds of stuff, and that's when the teachers get all upset. These you can lean back and you stay the same. So this is a classroom. 2 walls painted whiteboard. We have a smart board in every room. And you see, we encourage it. Now these are rectangular desks, but again, highly polished so that you can write on them. Imagine this. We're encouraging our kids to write on our desk and on our walls. What a strange concept that is. And there's our desks. Now, not only did we do it in a regular classroom, but we did it in our science labs as well. What you're looking at is you're looking at a science lab. And all of the tables are on wheels. All of the student chairs are on wheels. And they are also on hydraulics. And here's what's nice about Naperville Central High School. A teacher does not own their own classroom. Teachers rotate into that classroom all day long. So if this particular science teacher has the desks arranged this way, and you come in the next period and you want to have the desks arranged a different way, you do it. I've seen biology classes. They take these desks and they put them all in a rectangular, and the teacher gets in the middle and they're doing their dissecting of fetal pigs. And now the teacher has access to all of them. They're nothing more than a step away. Because if you need power for scopes, they're up above the ceiling. You just draw them down to the tables. And our lab stations where the Bunsen burners and the sinks are all around the outside. So we use the data to correct it. This was the reading classroom for our reading intervention program. You see that it doesn't look like a traditional classroom. You see that we have all kinds of different things for kids to talk and standing and writing. A bike. Imagine that in a classroom. So now this next slide, I think, is every physical education teacher's favorite slide. You want to prove that you have value. I know. I spent 40 years as a physical education teacher. 40 years as a physical education teacher. And you'd go in and you'd be at a cocktail party and say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I'm a teacher." "Oh, really? What do you teach?" "I teach phys ed." "Oh." Okay. And a lot of them would have all kinds of bad experiences. "Oh, my PE teacher was, terrible." I said, "Well, I'm sorry." Okay. So I talked about Dr. Chuck Hillman early. Well, when he does brain scans, so this slide, he sent me the picture of these slides, and I said, "Chuck, I need to create this as a PowerPoint slide." And now I go places in the United States, and this is everywhere. I go to a PE classroom, and they got this. I said, "Do you even know what it means?" "Oh, yeah, look." They rattle on and on. And here's what it means. On the left-hand side, you're looking at a composite of 20 students. And they're sitting down and they're taking a test. And again, not a cognitive test, but that flanker test that I talked about. So where the brain is lit up, it's resolving the issues of the test. Prior to taking the test, they sat quietly, much like moving from science class to math class to language arts class. Okay, they sat quietly. On the right-hand side, it's the same 20 students taking the same test. The only difference is they preceded that test with a 20-minute walk. Just a walk. Look at how the brain is lit up. Imagine how it would look if they were in a very hard, intense physical education class. It'd be all lit up. Be all lit up. Just unbelievable. So, my belief, the emphasis in physical education in the department should not be on sports skills. That's not our job anymore. In Sweden, if you want to become successful in sports, you join a club. That's where the coaching comes in. That's where the practice comes in. In the United States, we're blessed. All at schools, we have our athletic teams, and we compete against other schools athletically all the time. But again, our professional athletes don't come because of our PE classes. So fitness has to be the emphasis. Health, wellness, and then team building. Let the students problem solve by doing things physically. That's important. You see, if you send somebody to Google and say, I would like a job, they wouldn't care if you had the highest GPA. They wouldn't care what college they want to know, can you work cooperatively with a team? Can you problem solve? Can you get along with each other? Do you have the wherewithal to work for a company like Google? It's not about the brightest and the best. It's about all of those other things as well. So we now know that it takes 10,000 hours for mastery. So those of you in phys ed who think, oh, I'm going to turn all of these people into wonderful athletes because of my phys ed class. 10,000 hours for mastery. At 1 hour, you know some basics. Okay? If you do it for 10 hours, you have a pretty good grasp of the basics. If you do it for 100 hours, you're an expert. You're on your way to being an expert. At 1,000 hours, you are an experienced expert. At 10,000 hours, you're a master. You can't influence sports skills that much in your physical education classes. You have to understand that. So, this is Paul Zientaraski's way of talking about a physical education program. At the bottom levels, and working their way up, and I'll come back. And you see at the outside periphery, personal, social, behavior, processing skills, those are all important. Academic integration, you need to do that. So if you're doing skipping and doing multiplication tables or vocabulary words at the same time, we're helping out as physical education teachers. Okay? But health-related fitness and nutrition have to be all the way through. So now, preschool, K through 2, body management, sitting, standing, kneeling, bending, body control, all of those are critical. And I'm going to go on to my next slide, yes. If you have an opportunity, this is a website to see. Get Ready for School by Robin Cox out of New Zealand. This was one of those life-changing moments for me. It was like slapping me upside the head when I saw this website. And she explained it this way. On the right-hand side, you see a bucket and it's got all these holes in it. That's an infant's brain. When an infant's born, their brain has all of these holes. And if you try and pour mathematics in it or science in it, it's not going to hold. There's nothing there to catch it. Until you fill those holes with movement, they can't learn. Now, in the United States, we have a terrible problem. We bring our children home from the hospital and we swaddle them. We keep them like this. We put them in car seats. In the United States, car seats, oh, I should have invented one. And now car seats have gotten even worse because now there's even braces around them like this. And so a child's early life is like this. This is their world as they know it. And we take that car seat out and we put it in a shopping cart and we move them around the shop while doing our shopping. I'm 69 years old. When we went to the store, we ran around. We hid we fought, we ran, we touched. We did all kinds of things. We learned. Our kids don't do that anymore. So this is that bucket filled up so that you can see it better. These are the things that are so important. And I'll go back to my previous slide about sports skills. Just because you teach skipping one time doesn't mean they've mastered it. So at kindergarten, they have to skip. Second grade, first grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. Those are things that have to keep going on and on and on to become a master at it. A good physical education teacher will look at a second grade student, and if they cannot skip, they will struggle reading because they haven't mastered the opposite hand, opposite foot movement. That's all critical for the brain to function. If I could redo my career all over again, and I've said this before, I would go back as an elementary teacher rather than a high school teacher, and I would spend more time working on these skills because this is what our children need. And probably here in Sweden as well as the United States. Now when we look at the next level, 3 to 5, now we're talking about some fundamental motor skills. Still walking and running. We take running and walking for granted. Think about it when you saw your first child or your first baby walk. They walk like this. They had a diaper in between their legs. They couldn't even get close like this. They didn't want to messes on the floor. So they started walking like this. And they developed all kinds of bad habits. And we need to learn to walk properly. Run properly. So people don't end up with braces like this with spine surgery like I have. Skipping, galloping, spinning, rolling, jumping, hopping. All of these things are critical things. And again, it takes how many hours to master them? 100,000. So don't just, I taught that in first grade. You got to teach it again, and you got to review it again. And you got to make sure they understand it. You got to make sure that they master it. Starting about third grade is when you should start doing fitness testing. Before that, it's just genetics. About third grade, now you can start making a difference in their lives. Middle school, for us in the United States, this is 6th through 8th grade. Now we take some of those combination skills and we start to put them in lead-up games in some sports. But now team building and rhythms, which we've already introduced at the lower levels, but we now need to introduce it again back here. And this is when we start teaching fitness concepts. You see, we see our students 5 days a week for 50 minutes. I can't possibly change their fitness levels in that amount of time, and I see them on a daily basis. But I have to teach them the concepts. I have to teach them the concepts so they know how to take care of themselves. They know how to set up a program. They know how to read a heart rate monitor. They know if they're in a zone that's going to benefit them for weight loss, or if they're going to be in a zone for benefit them for cardiovascular conditioning. That's what they have to learn. That's what's important for us to teach. Then at the high school level, again, more team building, some lifetime skills, leisure activities, and some sports. Really now, this is our last chance to make sure our students understand fitness concepts. Okay? So I talked about team sports. We do everything as much we can small-sided. So now in the United States, our American football is popular. And so you'll go to a lot of high schools and they're playing what they call flag football. Ron, and instead of tackling you, we pull your flag. Terrible. You know what happens in a phys ed class playing that? They'll spend 3 minutes in a huddle discussing about, okay, you run here, you go there, you do this, you do that, and I'll try and pass the ball to, and then they'll come up and they'll say, hike! And 30 seconds later, the play's over. 3 minutes. All right, you go. So this game is what we call pass ball. This is like ultimate frisbee. When you catch the ball, you can run with it until you get tagged. When you get tagged, now you must pass the ball. The only way you can score is to pass the ball over the end line to a teammate. Or you change the rules, like ultimate frisbee. You catch the ball, you have to stop, you have to pass the ball. You can change it up different ways, but 4 against 4 seems to be a good number to work with. So boys and girls play together. I amaze people when I talk about this in the United States. We play 4-on-4 in what we call softball. Now, baseball, as you know, has 9 players on the field. In the United States, it's ridiculous. We pay players millions of dollars to bat under 300 to be successful. Under, only 300, that would be their batting percentage. So you go to a PE class and you'll see a class of 36 students. 18 players are out on the field. 18. One batter, 17 people waiting to bat, and who's doing the pitching? The teacher. Well, in this game, it's 4 against 4. And my staff says, you can't play 4 against 4. I said, oh, yeah, you can. And so here's what you're seeing. Behind the batter in the far left corner, that's a left fielder. Coming up from there, there's a third baseman, hands like this, really engaged. Shortstop, hands like this, really engaged. Out over here on the far right side, that is the center fielder. 4 players on the team. Well, who's doing the pitching? Somebody from the batting team. See, the batting team only gets 1 pitch. If they don't swing, they're out. They swing and miss, they're out. If they hit a foul ball, they're out. If they hit a ball on the opposite field, so for a right-handed batter, left field is open, right field is out. And I hope I'm not talking, baseball so that people don't understand, but that's the way we play. And pitchers' hands are out. So if the batter hits the ball to the third baseman picks up the ball and throws it to the pitcher, if the ball gets to the pitcher's hands before the batter gets to first base, they're out. Now what happens if that pitcher drops the ball? The batter's still out because the pitcher happens to be on the batting team. We're not going to penalize the fielding team. Now here's the best part about this. As soon as we have 3 outs, the team that's batting supplies a pitcher. So we start to pitch. If the other team hasn't hustled out on the field to cover all the spots, bad luck, we're going. I'll ask students in a 36, 18 class, how many times did you bat? Twice. I said, how'd you do? Well, I didn't get a hit. 18 fielders. How do we expect a high school 14-year-old student to hit well with 18 fielders? He asked one of our students, well, how many times you bat? Oh, I don't know. 8, 10. How'd you do? Well, I got some hits, I got some outs. Which is like it was when we played in the neighborhood in the old days. We still teach skills. We use peer review, as you see the students laying down, reviewing their swings. Because, again, leisure sport. You see, beyond the age of 26 in the United States, 2% of the population participates in team sports. 2% to stay active, to stay fit. So why do we spend so much time in physical education classes on team sports? Don't know. Self-defense. We teach self-defense. Now, this doesn't make any sense for you, I understand. But, in the United States, we have coaches that are very stingy with their equipment. Not in Naperville Central. You see, the bags that we are hitting belong to the football team. And so we use the athletic equipment, we use physical education equipment, because again, I think we have 18 teams, 18 different sports teams. I think we have 18 different sports, maybe it's more than that now, that have after-school activities that compete against other schools. So we use all of those facilities and all that equipment. So here's a girls' self-defense class, and we bring boys in so that we can beat up on them. That's good. We do kayaking in the pool. We teach it. We're very fortunate. There is heaven, and there's nirvana, and there's Naperville. And sometimes I'm not sure which one I'm in. I mean, we're blessed with good facilities, but it's taken us years to get to this point. But we teach kayaking in the pool because that's going to be a lifetime activity that kids can participate in the rest of their life. I talk about team building. This is team building. Each one of those buckets has weights in it, somewhere between 25 and 35 pounds. So along the way, they have to stop and they pick up those buckets, and they have to move in unison, right, left. Now, if you drop a rope, now you have to stand backwards on the. Now you say right, left. You drop a rope a second time or step off of it, now I have to blindfold you. There's consequences. and you have to get from point A to point B. Not a whole lot of expense here. I love this one. This is another one with a paint bucket. This is what we call toxic waste. The bucket starts over here on the chair, and it's filled with weights again. Everything's got to have weight in it. And I fill it with packing peanuts. You know, styrofoam packing peanuts. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Fill it up. And you have to move it from point A to point B. The box at the other end, they have to dump it in there. Now, if a packing peanut happens to float off of the bucket from point A to point B, then the person in the hazmat suit, Freddy Krueger in the red jacket, see Freddy Krueger, has to pick up that peanut and put it back in the bucket. And they can't hold it because it's toxic waste. You don't want to be exposed to toxic waste. And so now they'll suffer and they'll struggle. You see over here, this gentleman over here with the blue shorts on is one of the shortest guys in the class, and he's got some weights. He's way up here. This young lady over here is about 6'2" tall. She was one of our basketball players. And you have to figure out where to balance it, where you're holding, who's going to hold what at what level. Those are all good stuff. All right, malpractice. I know it doesn't happen in Sweden, but it happens in the United States all the time. We're going to keep, especially at the elementary level, we're going to keep a student out of physical education because they're behind academically. So they need more time for academics. That's like saying to you, you're struggling in math. So if you don't get it in the 50 minutes of my class period, we're going to give you 2 50-minute class periods to get your math caught up. That's like saying to you, you know what, you need a root canal. And it's so good we're going to give you 2 of them. Really? You see, if somebody's struggling in math, do you think they want to be in 2 50-minute math periods? Not me. But this is what we do because we're tied to those test scores. Our administrators are responsible for that. That's how they keep their jobs. Or they're a discipline problem. Oh, you misbehaved in my class, you're not going to go to PE today. Well, Paul, who misbehaved in your class, is the one who needs PE most. You saw the brain chemistry. I would tell teachers, hey, if you have problems with a student, send them to the gym and have them run 3 laps. Oh, don't use exercise as it's not a punishment. It's a brain adjustment. And if you don't want to do that, then have them get in the back of the room and say, Paul, see how many times you can touch your right leg to the floor in 30 seconds and come back. And Paul, if you misbehave again, you have to try and beat that record. It's not a punishment. And if you explain that to parents, I'm not punishing your child. I'm giving them a brain adjustment. I'm getting those chemicals back in their brain adjusted the proper way. Or they didn't finish their homework. Don't even get me started on homework. But, so you didn't finish it, so you can't go to recess today because you got to stay inside and finish. Those are the people who need it the most. And those are the ones we restrict them the most often. Ridiculous. Can't ever let that happen. Okay, you've been sitting too long. You've been a great audience. It's time to get up and find a new partner. But before you do, let me explain how this works. This is called slap counting. You're going to face your partner. You're going to stand there with your palms up. We're going to start with 54, and we're going to count backwards by 3. So if I'm person number 1, I'm going to go 54, 51. My partner, who is facing me, is then going to go 48, 45, and so on and so forth till you get down to whatever you get down to. Ready? Get up and find a partner. Here we go. Once you've completed that task, have a seat and sit down. Okay, so you can just already automatically feel the energy in the place go up when you get a chance to get up and stretch and do something fun. You also notice that if you didn't know the answer, you couldn't make the strike. 38, 35. And if you didn't know the answer, you couldn't make the strike. All right, next thing that's important. Two things that really affect the brain: nutrition and sleep. So we're going to talk about those two real quickly. Science of breakfast, that meal that they eat before they come to you. What are the right foods for breakfast? Now you in Sweden have it much better off. I mean, you do it better than we do in the United States. I will say that. I've seen breakfasts in Sweden at the hotel today. You've got it right. But your kids have to do it right, though, too. Foods that contain whole grains instead of those made with refined flour. You see, I have refined flour in white because my statement is, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. No nutritional value in white bread. Examples: whole grain muffins, bagels, whole wheat bread for toast or sandwiches. Cereals, especially oatmeal and bran cereal. Now for me, most breakfasts are a peanut butter and honey sandwich on whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread is my complex carbohydrate. Peanut butter is my protein. Honey is a natural sugar that starts my metabolism. This 3-pound muscle consumes 20% of the glucose your body manufactures. Your body manufactures glucose with a combination of complex carbohydrates and protein. Without protein, without complex carbohydrates, you need that brain, the brain needs that, 20%. When I eat oatmeal or bran cereals, I'll fortify it. I'll add, fruits and nuts with it, especially it. Reduced fat dairy products such as skim milk for cereal, low-fat yogurt. Fresh fruits and vegetables are side items, especially bananas, a good source of complex carbohydrates. Never forget it, I'm teaching a class. We're talking about breakfast, and the student says, "Mr. Zientaraski, I had a healthy breakfast today." "Oh, good, what'd you have?" "I had an apple." Okay. Well, that's a side item, but, where's the protein involved there? So maybe if you dipped it in peanut butter, it'd be okay. Eggs, cheeses, various nuts. Eggs in the United States have got a bad rap for years. Don't eat eggs, your cholesterol will go way up. Oh, it's a natural food. Eat eggs, it's good for you. Lots of omega-3s in there, lots of protein. It's good for you. Now, do you have to eat a dozen of them every day? No. But it's a good source of nutrition. Almonds are high in protein, and eggs are a good source of omega-3s, which are also important. Okay. American diet. This is why we have an obesity epidemic in the United States. It's because of sugars. And if you see down here in the corner, tea, fruit drinks, soda, sports drinks, energy drinks, 51% of sugars on our youth diet comes from those. I'll go to football matches, soccer matches, as you call them, football matches, as you call them, soccer matches. And at halftime, all the mothers are out there giving them sports drinks. No, give them water. That's what they need. They don't need those sports drinks. And the American Heart Association says no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar for the adult woman, no more than 9 for the adult men, no more than 3 teaspoons for children, no more than 8 teaspoons for teens. So after a while, the mother said, "Oh, well, sports drinks are no good. We're going to give them Capri and Sunny D. Those are more healthy." No. They've already got 4 teaspoons of sugar. They've already exceeded their amount of sugar in just that serving as a treat from a soccer match. Okay? Here's what we know about obesity. And I tell you, since I have been in Sweden, I have yet to meet an obese person. You people are amazing. You're on bikes, you're walking. I mean, you should applaud yourself. In the United States, it's horrific. Anyway, but this is brain scans on obese. And where you see the yellow, that's brain plaque. That's where that part of the brain is dead. It's not functioning anymore, and that's all because of obesity. And we're starting to see the same thing in kids. So 8% brain less tissue prematurely ages somebody by 16 years. That's just obesity, okay? Here's another book, if you haven't read it, Dr. John Medina, Brain Rules. Again, I'll try and get information from as many people as I can. I've gotten some great information from him. Talks about sleep and math on page 161 of his Brain Rules. With 8 hours sleep, math calculations thought will increase, let's see, it blocked it out, will increase 33%. 1/5 of the blood goes to the brain while sleeping. 3 hours after studying is the best time to sleep. Long-term memory happens in the hippocampus, which is where those new brain cells are developed through exercise. So when those of you with children, have them study and then send them off to sleep. Don't have them study and then do their video games or their Snapchat and all that. That's the best time. Well-rested show a 22% increase to be creative. Sleep is important. It is only during sleep that we form long-term memory. When I finish and get off the stage and you walk out of here for a break, I will see everything I talked about just falling out of your brains. It won't be until you sleep tonight that anything that I said that will sit, will sit. You need 8 hours of sleep. The first 6 hours you're dealing with outside forces. The last 2 hours of sleep is when you're in REM sleep. That's when brain works. I get this study from U.S. Naval recruits. In 2000, 2001, they reduced their sleep to no more than 6 hours a day. It was one of these. Okay, to bed now. Get up now. We're going to drill now. You know how it is in the military. In 2003, they decided they were going to let them sleep 8 hours. Their lowest GPA that year was higher than the highest GPA from the previous years. And the difference was 2 hours of sleep. 2 hours of sleep. Many of our children are sleep deprived. So all I can say to you is think about what you do and why you do it. These are the kinds of things you need to educate your students and your parents about. There is nobody out there in the audience who wants to be a bad parent, but most parents don't know about this information. Most teachers, most educators, most people don't know about this information. It's your job to get it out. It's your job to teach the next generation so that students understand the benefit of exercise. This is my website. It's called learningreadinesspe.com. And this is a link to my slides if you're interested in them. And if there's anything here that makes any sense or of any value, use it. It doesn't do me any good to give you this information if I don't give you permission to use it. Use it freely. Thank you, you're a great audience.
What kind of keys do you think that a teacher, a PE teacher or a regular teacher needs to push to get the principal to buy your story, to do your thing?
Okay. I think it's important to create data. If you can figure out a way to create data. So if you're a PE teacher, start working with another classroom teacher and try to pair together and then figure out a way to measure those students' performances that are coming from your PE class to that other teacher's class and compare them to those students who are not coming from that class and then collect data. That's what spoke the most to our administrators in our building that allowed me to get the program going even more. Data drives decisions, as we say in the United States, and so that, I think, is the biggest way you can improve it. It's also helpful if you pair with an academic teacher, and the academic teacher says, today I'm giving a hard examination. So on that day, in my phys ed class, I'm going to make sure they get lots of aerobic activity. That will help prepare them to take the tests a little bit better. And that communication back and forth between the PE teacher and the academic teacher is very, very important.
Thank you.
is would there be a benefit in having a pulse training before national tests, or because the national test is so demanding for the brain, considering the amount of sugar is needed, considering the amount of energy is needed, that it could actually have an opposite effect on the results of national tests?
Good question. As soon as we started finding out the data from our work, when we did our statewide testing, we put in a program where we put music on and students had to move in the hallway for 20 minutes. Couldn't go to the classroom. Get out, move, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. We explained to them, and I would meet with the classes that were taking the statewide or the nationwide test. It's important to get a good breakfast. It's important to stay hydrated, so bring water with you to the test. When you have an opportunity, stand up and move around. Don't just sit down. Don't just work on your phone. It's important to move. We showed them slides and explained how movement affected the brain, and we've been very fortunate. For us, our statewide testing and your national testing is similar. It's probably the SAT for us in the United States. We probably average double digits students who will get perfect scores on the ACT or SAT over the last 10, 15 years. Now, it's not just because of movement. It's because of the great job the teachers are doing in the class as well. It's because of the great product that we start with. Our students are great. Our parents are very supportive of us, and they want their students to be successful. So it's not just about movement, but it'll never hurt. And to give you another antidote, my grandson runs cross country. And when he went before his test, I said, make sure you go out for a morning run. And he scored 33. 36 is a perfect score. He scored 33, and he has his choice of any college. So it helps. It prepares the brain for testing. It helps for the stress and anxiety that you've heard the neurotransmitters affect. So that is taken into effect. They're more alert. They're more attentive. So absolutely, it will help them. But emphasize breakfast and hydration too.
And I was going to say, your parents at your school want to be involved somehow, right? Well, maybe ask them to put on a breakfast before. They'd love to help out in some way. And then also I've seen students walk around the school. Just walk around, not inside the school, outside the school before the testing, and then they're better prepared for the test.
Something at our Sweden being Sweden, I'm actually from Canada, and I've been living here for 15 years, and I was amazed that what we have at our school, for example, is we actually serve breakfast before national tests. But what we're thinking now, next step would be exactly this. But then I'm just wondering, Anders, from your perspective, do you agree with Paul, or do you think that the brain could go into a lack of sugar 2 hours, 3 hours into a test?
That's a very interesting question. To my knowledge, it has not been tested. These really complex cognitive demands, how they would function after physical exercise. But my guess is that you should walk and not run. Don't do it too much, because that might cause your glucose to go down a bit, and that could decrease the results basically. So probably walking and not running. But I think it's beneficial to do something just before the test. I actually do.